All right, welcome everyone at the multi-networking community sync meeting. Today is June 28th. And on the agenda today, thank you, Michael, for kind of keeping the track, but he suggested to kind of revisit our scope for phase one, because I think according to our initial kind of schedule, we are over what I think if initially what I was planning to have this phase one draft of the cap done by end of Q2, so basically by end of this week, which we are kind of behind on this one. So I want to kind of revisit what we can do, what we should scope, and maybe set some target date of when we want to finish things done, have things done. The next one is to review AIs, and then lastly, to continue on the CAP discussion. If you have any other AIs, please add here before maybe the CAP discussion. It always takes the rest of the meeting. All right, so the phase one scope target date, scope and then the target date. So let me maybe share what is the current scope. And just to quickly show you, this is the draft of the initial kind of scoping that we have with the requirements. That's what kind of the guidance, what I'm kind of trying to use as a guidance of what to do. And if you read most of it, it defines, I think up to all this place, 16 points. The first 16 points defines on how the new pod network object that we're trying to define is going to behave. So I think we're covering like 100% of this with just defining the behavior and the API of the object. So basically most of those are covered. I think the two additional items that we haven't covered yet is the RBAC. That's one item that we haven't looked at yet, and it's like additional item to have. And then lastly is the downward API, or maybe just a feedback of information of what we are given to the pod. So the question is that something that we could push out of the first phase to kind of shorten it and just kind of focus on the API itself, its behaviors, and then on the next phases and push back the two to the next phase. Any opinions? I'm not sure whether we could use and live without RBAC. Is that something that we have to have from the day one? Maybe not. Maybe we can live without the RBAC, and then since we're gonna be just alpha anyway, I think that should be fine to push out. I would have to probably ask them, unless anyone has some knowledge about this.
I think for RBAC, I mean, the expectation, this is going to be alpha, so not all the features are going to be there. We should at least figure out where it's going to go. I think you're proposing phase 2 or phase 3.
Yeah, I would push it back to the next phase though. I think at that point, right? Whatever is not going to do, let's first push it to phase 2. And then if anything, then we can revisit. But for now, just push it out for phase 1. That's what I'm thinking. And you saying that RBAC is okay to push out. I have no experience with that. I wonder whether if you provide some new APIs, do they have to have like RBAC in place right away? Or is that something that can come later date? Anyone has some experience? If not, then I will just try to ping locally within kind of my team to kind of reach and see whether that's available. Hopefully it is. But I don't hear any restrictions or any voices to have it in as a must.
Peter, I saw you unmute. Did you have something to say there?
I was just going to say that there's a general point, which is I'd like to get something out, and I'd rather get something out with a few pieces missing and say, exactly, we know that we need to do this, and get some eyes on something, because I think that'll make it more concrete to people, and I think it'll give us a bit more momentum. So I'm all for kicking out stuff like that. And RBAC, well, I agree we need it, but this is the very first implementation of Alpha 1. Exactly. I'm not too worried about it being missed for that.
All right, so let's kick this guy out. That will be the first thing, and then the other thing. if you read through those, like the other just describe how the network should behave. So basically that we should have the default network, pod network, that it should be any reference connect to cluster network. So pod shall provide. I think most of the other one is just we need to satisfy the requirements, and it can be done just by, and it kind of pushes everything into implementation, like the isolation aspects. The one of the requirements is like here, every pod has to connect, had to have connectivity within the specific pod network. So this is something that just as well on implementation, connect to each other manner defined by yet again pod implementation. So I think most of the other one are mostly of how things should be defined by the API and how it should behave. And the last one is the pod network information. Interface information. Are we okay with pushing that out? This is something that, okay, we will have API, we will have, so what we will end up with, we will end up with the API defined and being able to specify that API in a pod. That's basically it. That's basically what we are discussing till now. And this will be the end of it, right? Considering phase one. Do we need, this is a big one, to be honest, because this one gives us a lot of feedback, but are we okay to not have it in the first go?
What is the impact if it's not in the first go?
You have no information about what really was set up, right? Right now, what we would have is maybe just the status that I have some proposals to maybe slightly update the status of the pod itself. But then that will be the only feedback of what's really happening inside the pod namespace in terms of networking, right? This is what, and this is as well information to the workload inside the pod. But to be honest, I don't assume anyone right now jumping with alpha to production level with this. So considering we will limit this one, definitely nobody will, because kind of little add value. Thoughts?
That was just to add some talking points. I'm actually trying to find the link for this, what you're showing. Are you able to send that link?
Yeah, so this is basically, this is the cap. The link is on the top of the, I'm just viewing this in the manner of just like this. Let me chat. Where is the chat? Here, please, in the meeting chat. So you can either do so basically what I did is this is my site, but I'm just viewing this in the rich diff for my commit. I put it all, and I now combined everything into one commit. The PR itself is commented out, is a lot of comments, so it's kind of kind of divided into that. So this is just a clean view in the commit. Any other thoughts? I know you probably hadn't a chance to kind of read through that, but right now those two elements I would like to kind of push out. Those are the only items we could push out. Maybe that's the wording. I think RBAC we agreed on. 17. Anyone? Any opposition on pushing this out?
This may be a case where we need to like let it simmer for a day or two, let people read it and comment on the PR or comment in the Slack channel. If we don't hear anything, then
yeah, let me that's a fair point. Yeah, let me just do that. Let me add the links to the meeting notes.
And then we have a question in chat.
Yeah, exactly. Share this. Yeah, this guy. And then there is a matter of the date. Do we want to target? What is it? So basically, 128 shipped sailed, right? Right now, next one is 29. What is the target date for that? Is that what you were saying? So Michael, you were making something about end of September or something?
Oh, I said September 18th, I think. Just simply, that was an arbitrary date because it's my birthday.
Okay, I had to look at what's the closure date for 29. What were those? Item. Where were you? 11 and 17.
Doug, do you have any thoughts?
Well, I want to read exactly that sentence again. Give me a second.
Maybe I will do this. RBAC and 17 is a. I think that was for workload, right? 17, if not mistaken, was for workload. Come on. And nothing. To runtime pod, exactly. That's what it is. Okay. And
So help me understand this number 17 again. So I'm just reading it out loud in hopes that maybe it helps me get it. But
so the point of this one, and I will provide that on example of a Multus. Multus today, for example, to get information. For example, to get information, maybe not Multus. I think that's better example will be device information. So device plugin today, if you pass a device into the a pod, a device plugin will, and the whole mechanism around device plugins from Kubelet will pass a environmental variable with the PCI ID. To be honest, I'm not sure whether that's Kubelet or that's specific to the device plugin Multus uses for SRLV. But basically, what you end up with is the workload inside the pod to get access what PCI IDs have been assigned to it will be provided through that environmental variable. All right. So now this 17 is to provide some sort of information about all the interfaces that has been decided and defined to the pod. All right, so it will say, okay, pod network blah was assigned to you. This is the IP, this is the MAC, this is the whatever we decide to kind of information to provide, but basically that kind of things, right? You will get that information to the pod, and pod will have easy access to a generic access to that information. Right now, that's I don't think we have such thing.
Following. So I would say that I am in favor of keeping this as a phase one because of our second use case is for hardware devices. And this was definitely particularly challenging in the hardware devices space to figure out how to pass that information along to the right place it needs to be. So I would say I'd be in favor of keeping this in a phase one.
And keep in mind, it's not like we are not doing that. Never. It's just push back to the next phase. That's kind of our reasoning here. To at least mine reasoning. We would push it so that we can kind of finalize on the current cap, and then because it's gonna be alpha. Keep in mind, whatever we are designing now, it's gonna be all fully just alpha. I know that's useful, but keep in mind, it's not like, are you saying that because you think you can start doing some production stuff on this? Is that would be
I
your
mean, that's
target?
that's a ridiculous claim to me. I don't plan to be doing any production stuff with this, but what I think is that we should align these requirements with what we have in the use cases, right? So
No, definitely, definitely.
uh,
And keep in mind, there is additional phases to eventually get there, right?
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, honestly, if we wanted to kick that over, that's to the next phase, that's fine. But I do think that there are some of these tricky bits in here that
Mhm.
if we leave them to too late, it might require us to like circle back in the design process, right? So
And that's
that there's
and that's
trade-offs here with like if we say this is a secondary consideration,
mhm.
then yeah, what does that mean for the
No, not
design?
so. Let me maybe clarify on that one. So right now, after proposal from team on the cap itself, right? We are not creating separate caps. We are working on the same cap. Every phase is the same cap. Is just a new PR updating the old one, right? So and if we will feel that until we will feel that the APIs are not there, we will change them and we will keep them in alpha and keep changing them. So there is that. What
That's fair enough. I'm just worried that what
mhm.
if we don't get stuff like this on the first pass here, are we gonna have, is it just gonna cause more work for the group? That's what I'm worried about.
Why would you think this item to have such impact? Because this is, I would consider this, if we defined of what parameters we want to right now define, and we are thinking about, right, what I mentioned is, let's think about that. Like, so we are defining the pod name API, and then we are defining how we attach it in the pod. How you get access to that information from the workload point of view, isn't that just an add-on? Okay, now we have to figure out how Kubelet exposes that to the pod. Why do you think that would affect this core design? Where do you
Well, I
see?
think you could say that about any item on
Mhm.
this list, right?
Okay,
Is that it could cause us to come back and reconsider that.
okay.
But you've convinced me for this one item. Let's punt it.
Tomo, you had a hand. Please go.
So I have the several questions about this stuff. So so this means without RBAC, you are going to implementing this stuff to the Kubernetes. Is that correct?
Okay, yeah.
So
And
in this,
this what I'm thinking, the general way how you do, and I am looking at the DRA right now. This is just a recent thing, so that's my kind of example. And when I see on the code that there's a lot of nice things about this, how they did it is a feature flag, and it's all behind some alpha guarding. So I'm not sure exactly familiar that with yet, but that's how the DRA did it. So that's, I'm gonna follow the same thing.
so this means the first time implementing this stuff is the feature flag. So and then this is the disabled by default. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes,
Mhm.
that's the only way we could do it anyway. So I think that's, yep. Like all the features in Kubernetes, like you want to kind of have like now all behind feature flag. Yes, and this kind of includes it as well. All right. So I would like that idea of us trying to get into the let me see, Kubernetes schedule.
Just one sec. Can we make sure Taylor, I don't know if his microphone is working, but he's been posting some messages in chat.
Oh, really? Oh, sorry. What will it save pushing out 17? So Taylor, depending on how we would so is 17 inhabiting some users to use it? So I would tell you other ways. Today's implementation, and I'm bringing up Multus all the time, don't have this feature today anyway. So I consider this as just a super enhancement down the road, and everyone's going to use it, and adjusting their workloads to use that API, which today doesn't exist anyway. So it's not like we are blocking from usability. It's not there as it is today anyway. So I'm considering 17 as a enhancement to what you can do today. That's what it was meant to do, to enhance, because when we were discussing about that requirement, that was like one of the bullets that was a pain point, and we tell, okay, with this approach, let's improve that. Let's have a better kind of access for the workloads of what interfaces a pod has, because that wasn't there, right? So that's what it is. So it's not like we are blocking really some of this. It's just what I want to say. It's an enhancement down the road. So I don't think it's a big blocker for usability, right? You can still provide, and again, I'm going to bring up the Multus use case, right? So you will have a reference inside the pod. You will have the object itself that can point to network attachment definition, and basically you get rid of the annotation of the pod definition on the pod for attachments to the pod, right? So that's the value added that will happen with our feature. And of course, before that, we have to take into consideration all the reviews and whatever what the rest of the community is going to talk about, this whole kind of idea. So I want to kind of address to this. I'm looking at the kind of schedule because why I'm saying this is release schedule is we need to have 128, 120. This is for 128. I wonder is there. So what I'm saying is we're gonna pause. We have to make this whole cap to a form of a fully, okay, now this is a fully reusable, usable kind of code that we want to implement, right? Folks have to review this, and that's gonna take time. So, and then feedback and then discussion. Additionally, we are modifying the pod, so we have to go to I'm not sure which team is it, ARC. I'm not sure which team responsible for pod spec, but we have to go to that SIG and convince them that that's something that we want to do. So all that gonna take time, and don't think we can. I think this is something that we need to start like in a month or so. That whole process, or even faster. Probably Patrick is not here today. He probably could have given some hints on how long it took for the DRA to get it in, but that's the kind of gist of it, right? Did I answer your concerns, Taylor? Mm.
Hi, I can talk. I can turn my audio on.
There you go.
So I was just thinking that, and this is me on the outside without digging in, and we're actually doing it, but 11 with RBAC, there can be all sorts of things that get more complex with the implementation. So I can think 11 is more work. And how would it affect getting feedback on a first release? And it doesn't seem like it's going to have a major effect. It's very important to get RBAC in. It's part of what I'm saying for a lot of checklists with different groups on what's important, but it doesn't seem like a first release it would be required. 17 though seems like if you have it, it's going to make it a lot easier for people to try this enhancement out and use it with whatever use case. We have a bunch of use cases already listed that have been talked about for months, but other people are going to have other ideas. So if they come in and they have less hurdles to try and give feedback, then you're more likely to get more feedback quickly for this. But if 17 is a lot of effort, that's of course different. I'm thinking showing, just comparing the two. So what amount of effort does it add to the implementation? Is it going to be a big impact in the time to get that first release? If it's not, then the feedback, in my mind, it's going to increase the amount of feedback. Just because if you make things easier for users, you're going to have more people try it.
That's fair. Yeah. This one, I'm not sure what it will take, because this has to be some sort of in the requirements. We're talking about like downward API, right? So not sure who's exposing that. I think Kubelet would have to expose that and provide some sort of, that's what I would think. You expose some endpoint in Kubelet that you could query, and then or maybe some socket, I don't know. That's something that we need to figure out. What will be the best way to kind of come up with some sort of server that can reply to you, right? And now with receiving a request from a pod, what do we do, right? How do we then, we need to have a means to identify that, okay, that's coming a request. So we need to make sure it's secure and it sends out the right information, so we don't leak information, because that's another thing, right? So if we do it in Kubelet, that's centralized piece, right? Can we? I'm not sure whether we want to push it on CRI because that's yet another level of things, because that's outside of kind of now pushing to CRIs, and that's now per CRI. So I don't think that's a valid approach. I'm really not so familiar with all this area, so that's why I'm considering this a bigger item. You see, because right now that's what it have to be, right? Pod would have to have a means to reach out to something, some endpoint to get that info, right? I'm not sure it is something that we could provide in the pod spec. That's not the point. And the other hand would be to provide, the other idea that was there was to provide it through the environmental variables, which then definitely engages CRI, right? Or CNI or something that expands that and passes the environmental variables. Unless the downward API is already exists, and this is something that we can just expand. And this is something I'm not familiar. I know that.
So, I was going to say the downward API already allows you to export it. I think it's a JSON file, and someone might be able to correct me, with various fields from the pod spec. So maybe this is as simple as expanding the list of fields that Kubelet supports to include pod network attachment.
My only point is if you have multiple blocking issues, the priority still matters. Because I mean, I don't know a whole lot about. Well, I know something about this project. I know more about Nokia, but in Nokia's case, we're trying to get the 2212 released GA. It's in their lab. Things that we know are going to block the GA are lower priority than the things that are blocking their progress on testing. You get the idea, right? Yeah, yes, I do. But there's a main difference here also. Wait.
Oh, Mohammed,
the other one is a feature request.
I think you're different.
Hot mic?
Okay, sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was just going to say I don't have any feel for how expensive or difficult it is to do a very basic implementation in the kubelet. And I wonder if there is somebody who would know that, or we could find out, because it might be there's something very simple we could do very cheaply, or it might be a big deal.
Yeah, that's what I'm not familiar with that.
So maybe it's worth taking that offline and seeing if we can find someone who can fill that in, or somebody do some research.
I will look into that. I will ask around.
Yeah.
Right. That's, I will take that on. All right. Any other comments? Please read through the list again in the link if you find something else that we should push out. I think that's what I kind of get a quick skim. I think that was the only other thing, but please give it a read through the 17 items if there's anything else we should kind of push out. All right, AI. So from last week, we talked about the any other stuff to the scope. Oh, we didn't. Oh, I know. Sorry, apologies. Date. Should we target this for 129? That's going to be happening for, I think, around November timeframe. No voices. Yeah, okay, thank you. So let's try that. I will try to, I try to look, Google the what is the schedule for 129. There's only 128. I cannot see 29. So I will kind of ping that one and see what is the kind of freeze to get the caps merged. So I think we have to have at least months before that. We should have this kind of file in order. And yeah, September. What you said, 18th. Okay, there you go. And try to kind of target this so that we can have at least some deadlines to kind of keep. Okay.
And our definition of done for this phase would be to have the KEP or have the pull request that implements the data object.
So the current done is the KEP merged. All right.
Okay.
Having the KEP merged, that is what I will consider this one as done, because then we can work on the implementation. Yes.
Okay, so all right, I am confused here now that you're saying
Mhm.
we're going to do all of the phases in the same KEP and we're just going to put the pushes to it, but the definition of done is that the KEP is merged. Do I have a like foundational misunderstanding?
Okay. What we want to do is the current requirements phase that we have a PR, let's call it PR, needs to get merged. ISAF. I am working to get the LGTMs for that and get it merged. And I'm unfortunately a bit behind, but I am trying to get that merged. The first phase of this KEP is not implementable, so it's not something that we have to deal with. We will keep updating the same KEP. And what I mean here is let's call it like phase 1 PR merged. Okay, that's
okay. Now I
yeah,
understand.
sorry.
So what
Yeah.
I missed was that the requirements and use cases, we will build on top of that until we have the data object. And at
No.
No.
No, we need to keep merging it, because right now, why I want to merge it, because if it's merged, then it's kind of set in stone. I know you can create a PR to change it, but we need to get there, and I'm struggling with getting that thing merged. And eventually, I don't know, another PR will have to be created with this. So I need to get sure that the requirements is merged. Yes, I am. Please, that's another thing. If anything, that's what I thought. Please read through the KEP yourselves and leave LGTMs that you're okay with it. If there is just leave LGTMs so that the community knows that yes, there are folks that are okay with what we have, and yes, please let's work towards getting that stuff merged as well. Even if you are not a member of Kubernetes, that doesn't matter. You're part of the community, and leaving LGTM counts there as well. Okay, so that's what I'm thinking. It will be still a bit kind of different, because we will try to get that KEP mergeable for 129, and then it's gonna add phase 2, which will be again be implementable, right? So because they have those phases for caps, right? But until that's what I'm thinking. We're gonna make it in phases and implement them in phases, and until we get to all the phases and then have everything in place. That's the kind of my
Okay,
thought.
yeah, and I'm sorry to be dense here, but let me
No,
just
that's
make
fine.
sure that I understand that our goal for September 18th proposed possible deadline, whatever that may happen to be,
Mhm.
to get the current phase 1 cap merged with the requirements and use cases.
Right. So
Okay.
yeah. What I'm thinking is to get the current PR merged ASAP. That's why I'm looking for LGTMs for the requirements and stories themselves first.
Okay. All right.
So that has to be merged, and then I create another PR that will modify that cap and add phase 1 stuff into it.
Okay, got it. So then, yes, once that merged, then we start getting the data object definition into the cap
Yeah,
as the,
exactly.
okay.
And when
All right.
so
I'm-
when
I'm
as
there.
soon as
Thanks
we
for the patience.
yeah, and then as soon as we have that cap merged by the proper like cutoff date, then we can kind of work towards making it implementable, and then we have a free range to post our PRs. By the way, having this cap merged, at that time we already can just work towards having the PR ready. It doesn't block us from that. So let's make sure that it's low. Only I can create PRs. You can do this as ISAP. Even today, I already posted the initial. The link is, I think, here. No, it's not here. It's somewhere in one of the minutes. I did created on my branch, on my local branch of Kubernetes, created just the object in the forms that we had it thought about it, but by that time. But I already have some changes, right? So then I just keep updating that guy and then create a PR out of it, right? So it doesn't block us from creating the change itself. It's just a matter of kind of satisfying the process, right, as well here. Okay. Any other questions to this?
So Taylor adding the comment in chat.
I think you answered it. It sounds like the definition of done that you're referring to was for phase 1.
PR merged, yes. The phase 1 changes, maybe phase 1 cap. Phase 1 cap changes PR merged. Yeah, that's what I want to do. Yes. And not the one that you're linking the pull request. That one is something that was supposed to be done a few months back. So that PR that you just linked, Taylor, is something that has to be done right ASAP. So please, LGTM, this is not what this is not there should be, and there will be another PR for phase 1.
The phase 1 and phase 2, all of those are listed in 3700.
Yes, they're in the bottom. Yes.
So the deciding on what's going to be in that list is probably important. Maybe before 3700 gets, like if you're going to bump out 11, the RBAC, and bump out 17, then that should probably be updated so that 3700 shows that, and then it'll be public README.
Sure. What's important from the current requirements list is the requirements themselves and the list of what we want to do. Phasing out is just an add-on, and then I can create this phase 1 that I'm saying, okay, I want to pull this one guy out. In phase 1, I will just change the ordering, right? I don't think that's a bigger deal, because I'm just moving things out from one phase to the other. I'm not removing some requirements that we all agreed on.
All right.
You see,
so everybody needs to, then you're saying everyone needs to LGTM 3700 so we can
yes,
just
please.
merge.
Yeah, of course, read it, and it's not like just blindly LGTM. If you have comments, please leave them. I try to address most, kind of all of them as I go.
Yeah,
But yes,
well, this has been out for months and months and months.
yes,
All
yes,
year.
yes.
I guess since last year, December.
December, yes. So please, please review if you see that there were like bunch of kind of updates from last week. So please, if you can, leave LGTMs, and then I will have another argument for other kind of leadership to go. Okay, folks, community likes it, and we want to push towards it. Please, please LGTM as well, or review at least, right? So, and from your perspective, if you have folks in your teams that have chair or what's not, push them as well to review this, so that we spread it around. It's not only one-sided. So LGTMs, we need that merged ASAP. Yes. Any other on this? I will try to come up with the exact date by this, but I think the definition of done is sound. All right, let's go to our AIs now. So from last week, the AI we had was the discussion around the params reference in the pod network, and shall that be a list? And thank you, Tomo, for the cases that you provided. Let's maybe walk through them. The first one, it's what you're saying is Multus case.
Yeah. Can I explain that?
Yeah,
So
go ahead.
I'm
Exactly.
here, of course. So that's why I'm joining this midnight time in Japan. Anyway, so let me explain that the before that the summary of the questions. So currently in the mouse network cap, the working Google Docs side, we have the pod network object, which is representing some kinds of a network. And then the this object is designed the implementation independent part is only. So the implementation dependent stuff such as the CNI or this stuff should be in the params ref. So currently this params ref is the simple object. So that we can only one object into the pod network object as the specification. So this is pretty challenging to us. I have several questions. The case one is the Multus case. So sometimes the user wants to create the two network attached def, and then both may specifying the one network. Okay, let's imagine that we can creating the on-prem cloud Kubernetes environment. Then for each worker node, ESA 1 and ESA 2, two interfaces connected. ESA 0 is ESA 1, sorry, ESA 0 and ESA 1. ESA 0 is used for a Kubernetes cluster network. So Calico, Flanell, Selenium, anything is going. And then we also have the ESA 1 additional interface. At that time, the user want to create another network. But the another network, sometimes they also adding the SLB supported hardware in the server and then try to connect that. At that time, the user, of course, want to use the Multus to connect to the two-way. One is creating the MAC VLAN to connect. And then if some port is required high-speed network, at that time, of course, they use this SLB hardware NIC. And then, of course, that's this case, they do not using the MAC VLAN. At that time, that they use is the SLB NIC, the CNI. So this means the one network, the user may have the two ways to connect, MAC VLAN versus SLB NIC. So at that time, the one network is belonging, one pod network is should have the two or more net attached def in Multus case. So that is the case. And another case is not
Before
the
you go to the other one, can I have a question? How would you differentiate between one or the other? So you have the SRV and MAC VLAN in one pod network. How you would differentiate between one or the other for a specific pod?
So maybe that's the also the in the in the pod network pod attach, I forgot the name. So maybe
in the pod spec.
pod network attachment or some stuff, you should provide some implement per pod implementations parameters, right? So maybe we should, or maybe we can add the annotation or some stuff to specifying for each pod about the to connect this pod network. I'd like to use the Macmillan side or sometimes the SRB side.
So that will be up to the implementation and how you would kind of differentiate what you're saying. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Can we agree?
Yeah.
Can we
implementation
agree on
side, the params ref is for the implementation side, right? So the how to use the params ref object is driven by the implementation side. So in this case, the Maltus will care about that. I mean that the params ref side, they have the array, and then we may have the label or name or some stuff to identify which item is applicable to the really used in the pod side.
Okay. So
that is the case one. And then another case is the not the Maltus case. I mean that. So currently the pod network, the CAP is designed not only to the CNI. So that this is about the match is specified that this is the not the implementation specific. So I'm just guessing that the not the CNI side, but the other some startup is designing creating the network implementations using the pod network side. At that time, the startup may having the two or more object for one network. The easiest way is the IPAM and then the transport object, like the Foobar IPAM network address object is as used for IPAM configuration, but of course this is only the IP address management. So they want to add the powerful network or some powerful transport network or some stuff to specifying the network configuration. So that's the two cases about to use the multiple parameter object in the pod network.
I think that's all valid. My only you asked for why would we keep it as a just single element, and my only reasoning will be just UX simplicity. That will be the only reasoning. But I don't see an issue with having it set as a list, and basically it will be up to the implementation how it's handled, right? At least with the list, we are not shooting ourselves in the foot, because having a single item converting to a list is a nightmare, because you have to have additional field. Then this way we are kind of future-proof, and we don't have to deal with that if in the future we're gonna decide we have even more cases to have the list. So I think we can convert that to a list. Any other opinions around this?
So you mean that so currently we keep the single object, but
I'm saying no. I say that we convert that to a list.
Okay.
Any other opinions?
So
that sounds good to me. Historians will note this as the first agreement in the history of this call.
How come? We already decided on the name itself, man. That's like the biggest thing that we agreed on.
Good point. Sweet. Yeah, that's great. Thanks for pointing that out, guys, and using this process to detail it. That's awesome. Great.
First thing we agreed on. Come on.
Okay. By the way, I'm also fine that the previous KubeCon's presentation about the network. So that this means the Lyft company, of course, they use the Kubernetes. At that time, they use the one CNI config to create the two network interface. So from the CNI specification point of view, this is valid. Maybe so the CNI specification do not limit one CNI config creating the one interface.
Sure.
So in this case, of course, the two network interface is not belonging in the one network object. So
okay.
In this case, So the one net, okay, so let's imagine the Multus case. If they're using this stuff, and then one net attach, they're creating the two interface, and then maybe the both interface is not in the same network, right? From the stuff. I mean that the one interface have the 10.10.10.10, and then next is the 1922.168 something. So how to deal with in the pod network design? I'm just coming up this stuff. This is not related to the Paramsref, well, slightly related to Paramsref, I think.
I think though this is very, I would consider that's very okay. Nathan, you have a hand. Go ahead.
Sorry, it's just a question about the case one. When we say that one pod network, we have several net attach definitions. Do we still maintain the fact that a single pod cannot attach twice to the same network?
Single pod attached to the single network, yes. So this is something that I think in contrast to what this I think this example, the last this FYI, right? So I think that was left, right? What you were saying. I think this example, I would consider this as a implementation specific here. And if they do that, then they have to handle that. But if they don't comply to our requirements here with the CNI, they will not be compliant to the pod network. So I think I'm considering having one CNI adding two interfaces because it can have multiple. I'm not sure. Can CNI conf have Michael probably can you can tell us, can a conf have ability to specify multiple at once? Is that a valid thing? Or because I know you can have a list and basically chain things together, but is the chaining is it allowed in a CNI? Is that specified? I'm not sure. Is that defined or that's just undefined?
It's up to the IPAM, and you remember CNI has, you can write your own IPAM or any CNI plugin. You don't have to just use the ones that the reference ones.
I'm referring to a case where it can have it can like single CNI can add multiple interfaces. Is that like that's what I'm kind of
multiple
towards.
No, there's only one Linux NetDev. Zero, for example. That's it. You can't specify a second one with the CNI add.
Exactly.
So
that's
Mike. I'm just talking about the CNI, the conf, and then specifications. So so currently the CNI, the configuration format does not specify the one CNI conf only creates the one interface, right? Actually,
yes, it does.
CNI result object may contains the multiple interface.
No, CNI, every CNI is with respect to one and only one CNI underbar IF name environment variable. And if you don't specify it, it becomes EAT0. There's no way for one CNI add to put EAT0 and EAT1 in. Now, that's from a CNI perspective. When the runtime calls Multus, you look like the one CNI, and then Multus will do multiple adds underneath.
But that's out of standard. What you're saying.
Well, but we don't. How do I say? So at the KubeCon, fortunately, I joined this KubeCon, and then I'm listening on this stuff. And then at that time, these guy is thinking that the CNI specs, of course, provides the IF name, but this does not mean the one interface is only created, and actually the CNI spec do not have the sentence about the must not having the two or more interface. I mean that. So that this is like the using the IETF context. The CNI spec may implement the one or more interface. That's the I think the valid.
I think what we are saying here, Tomo, that I agree with you. It doesn't block it. but I think it's
Yeah.
not compliant. It's what at least the whole community assumes. Single CNI, single config CNI assumes one net device. If you do something else, it's kind of out of standard. And
No,
then
it's not. It's not non-standard. This is a really nuanced thing, but
okay,
so both Mike and Tomo are correct from my standpoint, which is CNI spec has the one environment variable, but each CNI add has that environment variable. So
Yes.
if you have a delegating CNI plugin like Multis is, like it uses a delegate add call from the CNI libraries, that is legal to do. So
no,
it's a
that's
real-
fine, Doc. But
Yeah.
but basically
Go ahead.
think about case where if the single CNI adds two interfaces, can do we going by
That's
you
what-
say delegate, but if it's not a delegate,
Right, it has to be a CNI delegating plugin. Yep.
exactly. That's what.
chaining. So chaining can create the multiple interface.
I agree. That's what I'm saying. Chaining is possible to do that. Like a chain multiple CNIs one after another, and it's going to keep adding.
Just point of order, chaining means something to CNI proper. I'd rather the term not be used for what you're about to use it for.
Michael, I'm trying to kind of establish a standard, and I kind of on the
Yeah,
side of
and
having.
CNI chaining plugins means something in the CNI standard. Don't usurp the term.
Okay.
So-
Still,
okay, so-
what I'm trying
so
to get to here,
look the time.
Tomo, is
Yeah. So
we are
so
out
maybe
of time exactly.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
maybe let's continue the discussion next time.
Okay, I think the one thing I take out, yeah, we can look at, do we want to kind of handle that? Let me maybe just add it as a next talking point. But yeah, let's just finalize that on whether we should have that or not. All right, I think the decision, the one TLDR is that we are deciding on having and converting params list to a list. So let's have that. Right, thanks everyone. Hear from you next week.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks, bye.